There is a quiet tension that many high-functioning, self-aware people carry. We try to live like the version of ourselves we're becoming, but our nervous system and environment hasn't fully caught up yet. So we install habits that belong to the future version of. We adopt routines that fit a different season of life. And when it feels heavy to maintain, we often think that we're the problem. But we're not. It's that the habit doesn't fully belong to who you are yet. That gap between who you are and who you are becoming can quietly make habits fall apart. I've watched this habit repeat in myself and in a lot of other capable, self aware people, where habits fail not because the system outside is broken, but the system inside is still trying to seek safety. So today, I want to talk about what's happening internally when habits fall apart, even when you genuinely want change. Environment and identity mismatch. If a habit belongs to a version of you that isn't fully integrated yet, it will start to feel heavy. When the current identity and environments haven't caught up, this can start to create friction and resistance. Think of it as a tug of war. The old paradigm, the new paradigm, and then there's you in the middle, right? And they're both pulling and tugging at you on each side. And often what a lot of content online discuss is that once you do all of this internal work, your environment and identity is going to immediately change. But that's not true. In my personal experience and what I've observed in others, it can take weeks to months to even sometimes like a year to see the full picture and identity and habits and behaviors start to change. But sometimes internally, we can want that change right here, right now. And with this tug of war, it starts to kind of create a dance where you'll go and do the new paradigm habit. You'll do it for about a week. And then the old paradigm will pull you back in. And then you mess up, you fall off, you feel a bit of shame and, guilt internally. Then you come back and then go and do the new paradigm habit. And so this can be a very hard spot to sit in when you're right in the middle between the old paradigm and the new paradigm. It can be very hard sitting in the middle. And what's very important with all of these key points that I'm going to give you today is self-compassion. Self-compassion, self-compassion, self-compassion. Because it's very hard to sit in that spot where your energy is being pulled in two different directions. We can often feel exhausted and then start to blame ourselves when we fall off of the habits, when they start to feel really heavy. We could put a lot of self-blame. So remember to have self-compassion. So a really good example, and I'll take this out of my own life, is let's say you want to make a habit of wanting to go to more bougie places, right? So let's say you grew up, all you ever went to was Olive Garden and Red Lobster. And now you want to make it a habit to step into a new identity and do more bougier things, go to nicer restaurants, do first class, go to like the opera and stuff, art shows. And so as you can see, there's a kind of a big gap because there's social etiquette, there's clothing and attire, and just how you feel about yourself self-worth wise internally. How you feel about possibly embarrassment, because let's say you didn't do those things as a kid. All you went to was Olive Garden and Red Lobster. And so it can feel very abnormal to go to some of these fancier restaurants that have like dress codes and social etiquette requirements. And so you really have to start practicing fitting into this new identity and these habits. So you might say, okay, I want to make a habit to go to the bougie places, do the bougie things once a month. And then once you get good at that, you do every 2 weeks. And then once you get good at that, you do it once a week. And then once you get good at that, you now just buy the things so that they're in your everyday environment. So now you just have bougie stuff sitting in your house. You have like just glamorous stuff just sitting around in the house. But often, we can want that experience and that identity and those habits to be fully formed in second nature right then and there, right? We could want change so bad, but it's important to have self-compassion as you're transitioning from the old paradigm to the new, because best believe they will both pull and tug on your heart. And so this is where it could start to feel like you're performing the habit instead of inhabiting it. So in the beginning, it could feel very performative. Like, for example, your first time ever doing first class or going to a fancy restaurant can feel a little weird those first few times going in and doing those things. Another thing that us high functioning people can do is we can try to over optimize the current to try to hurry up and get to the future version so that this pain and friction that we feel inside can go away. So what we'll try to do, we'll try to use all that discipline, all that capacity that we have to go from our current reality up here, literally try to jump all the way up there with our habits. And so we'll add like 10 habits out of nowhere to try to over optimize and get to that ideal version of ourselves. And that's also not healthy. Keep a pin in the tug of war example because it's going to show up a little bit later as well. Nervous system resistant. Sometimes we don't fall off of the habit because we don't want it, but because our nervous system doesn't feel safe sustaining it. Change can feel very threatening. Even positive habits can register as unsafe because they're disrupting a familiar pattern. And so the body pulls you back to what feels known and familiar and comfortable and cozy. So I'll give you a really good one that a lot of us often struggle with. And it is leaving a toxic job. You ever go online and you type in quitting my job, handing in my resignation? When you watch those videos, pay attention to how that person's body is reacting. Because what they'll do is that they'll sometimes film them handing in their resignation or their last day there. And just pay attention to their body. You can see that sometimes they're like shaking or they'll just start crying. They'll be like crying, even though they know that leaving this toxic situation is a very good decision. Logically, it makes sense. But internally, it feels like a lion is chasing after them. It feels so overwhelming, too much, and just unsafe because the nervous system is unfamiliar with setting boundaries, with moving to newer and better things, with uncertainty. And so I will be creating a nervous system playlist as well. So tune in for that in the future. But if what I'm saying is truly resonating, I have the habit architecture playlist linked in the description along with the habit architecture guide. And that's just the outline of everything that I mentioned in all the videos in the playlist, just something that's short to keep with you as you're redesigning your habits. So I just wanted to mention that for the people who haven't seen the previous videos. Unresolved emotional load. Habits collapse when they're carrying emotional weight that they were never designed to. So sometimes habits can become a container for fixing our life, for healing, for proving your worth. And so a few things we can start to do is we can start using habits to compensate for exhaustion, for inefficient systems. So instead of making the actual change that needs to be made, we just dump on some habits in order to try to get a quick fix. Because we think, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to do better. That's something that a lot of high functioning, self-aware people, highly capable people, is that we could sometimes do a lot of internal self-blame where we can start to use our habits and behaviors to overcompensate for exhaustion and inefficient system. And so this is where burnout can stem from self-improvement. To where we now make self-improvement a chore and something that's a bit annoying or heavy. And let me go a little bit deeper. Sometimes in life, I'm pretty sure all of us have been there, where we've been in situations, environments that we hated. We hated them. And we dumped on some habits in order to try to hurry up and get ourselves out of it. But all we ended up doing was creating burnout, because the actual root cause of what was going on in that situation was not that you needed more habits, wasn't that you needed a bigger workload. So sometimes we could start to use habits as escapism. I know I've definitely have. Let me know if you have. But I've had periods where I have gone through more difficult times where I would throw on habits in order to mentally escape, because if I could be, not only just mentally escape, but also physically escape, if I could be out of that environment, I could buy myself a little bit of time, a little bit of time of sanity. If I focused on doing something else and doing these habits, I can't focus on how bad the situation is. And so sometimes our habits can carry these very heavy loads, whether we realize them or not. Sometimes I know at that stage, I definitely did not realize what I was doing until I had reached burnout. Habits feel best when they feel light, not when they're burdened down with emotional labor. Shame cycles. Back to the tug of war example that I gave earlier. So we go through falling off, self-judgment, withdrawal, restart, repeat. So going back to tug of war, when that old paradigm pulls you back and you fall off, and then you feel shame, and then you go back to center, and then you restart, and then you repeat the whole thing over again and over again. So it'll kind of look like, okay, you did good for first few weeks. You fell off. You felt shame for falling off. You can even feel like disgust too. And then you go back, you restart, you do the new habit again. You fall off, go back to the old paradigm. You feel shame. And so it creates a cycle. And some people can get really wrapped up in this cycle of rinsing and repeating the shame. And it can start to create kind of all of nothing thinking, or a very narrow minded mental capacity of what you're able to do. So when you're trying to design a habit, it's very important for you to ask yourself, have I previously failed? And if the answer is yes, then you need to look at the design, redo it, and then go through a trial period. Go through your appetizer, as I mentioned in video 1, the first video in the playlist, the appetizer, and see if it really works out in your life. And so we've all heard that quote of that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. That is what the shame cycle is when it comes to habits. It's doing the same loop, same shame loop, over and over again, but expecting a different result. It's very important for you to have self-compassion, like I mentioned earlier in the video, but also to redesign your habits. So the next video in this series will cover common pitfalls people make when they're trying to change their habits, even when the system is good. So make sure to go down in the description, click the playlist. I might also have it right here too, but it will definitely be in the playlist. And I will see you guys in the next video.